Oud-minister van Buitenlandse Zaken van Groot-Brittannië en arts Lord David Owen was in Amsterdam. Hij presenteerde de Nederlandse vertaling van zijn nieuwste boek, Zieke, wereldleiders. Hoe overmoed, depressie en andere aandoeningen politieke beslissingen sturen. Het boek geeft een nieuw beeld over de soms broze leiders in onze wereldpolitiek.
Your book, you mentioned the term hubris. Could you perhaps explain the term?
Well, it's a Greek term, and it means superconfidence. You anger the gods because you think you're better than the gods. Contempt for others is a big element in it, and it's a sort of belief that you can rely only on yourself. You are almost superhuman. If you want an example of hubris, think back to May the 1st and that aircraft carrier, Abraham Lincoln. It was actually steaming off the coast of California. And a plane comes in and out steps President Bush in flying gear, takes off his flying gear, stands on the deck of the aircraft carrier, and behind on the superstructure there is this great slogan, mission accomplished. Even Rumsfeld had suggested that he should take the word mission accomplished out of his speech. But of course by this time it was up there on the superstructure. And there he was declaring that the war was over on May the 1st. And 10 days later, we know, Blair was receiving a message from his ambassador in Baghdad that it's chaos here. There is no plan for the aftermath. Nobody knows what to do. The situation is out of control. I suggest you put some British troops into Baghdad. Now, Bertrand Russell, the philosopher, wrote a long time ago about the intoxication of power. And most of us know this, and this is not just confined to politicians. This is business leaders, very commonly. Some of these guys who are landing us in our present mess are totally out of control. And a long time ago, there was a famous dictum described by Lord Acton. And I'd just give it to you. I don't know whether it has travelled to Holland, so to speak. And that is, all power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
De Franse Mitterrand had prostaatkanker. Churchill verzweeg een hartaanval en Roosevelt had polio. Toch lijkt het vooral Kennedy, die door zijn ziekte van Addison daadwerkelijk verkeerde beslissingen heeft genomen.
But the dangerous point of Kennedy was after the Bay of Pigs, he came into the hands of a doctor who he treated once before in the presidential thing, a doctor called Dr. Max Jacobson, whose nickname in New York society was Dr. Feelgood. And his specialization was giving injections of amphetamines and steroids to their patients to make them feel good, stay awake all night, improve their sexual performance. And this exists. And in those days, in the late 50s, early 60s, amphetamine was still quite widely used. It's a dangerous drug. It gives you a high, but then gives you a low. Well, it's pretty obvious to me, putting together the sort of history, that when Kennedy went to Vienna to meet Khrushchev in June 1961, he had an intravenous dose of amphetamine just prior to the meeting. The meeting didn't take place immediately. Khrushchev didn't turn up for 45 minutes. So by the time they were well into the meeting, the effects of the adrenaline should have given the initial surge, and he bounced down the steps and treated him, great vigour. He was almost certainly into a downer. And it is by common consent of the observers who were at this meeting, a totally disastrous meeting in which Kennedy took, verbal abuse, threats, and, he was a crude but intelligent chap, Khrushchev. It was a disastrous meeting. And it led to Khrushchev making a gross miscalculation of Kennedy's strengths, and he thought he was a weakling and he could do things too. So 8 months later, he deployed to Cuba missiles and nuclear warheads. Now, so this meeting was very important, and the foul-up at that meeting led to the very crisis which Kennedy then resolved.